staff, particularly our Barbara here. You've done a fantastic job this morning. Believe me, at 12:30 it looked like we were all going to the pub. But thanks, Barbara. Where's Davey? Is Davey in? Davey's gone. Davey's my project manager. He's my right-hand man. He's fantastic. Takes a lot of the pressure off me. Everyone, paid staff, mentors, all make a difference to me in being able to do my job better. And I thank you all very much, and I look forward to another successful year for neraf. Thank you.
Off right now that we have to be cognizant of and have to think about in our planning. And Kevin's alluded to some of these. There's the financial side. These are also typical stereotypes of a charity that people have. There's the finance side. Everybody's scribbling for money all the time. And I would say that's probably true of most organisations at the moment. I do work for the Sunderland Partnership, and it's the same there. Finance is very tight. So one of the things we have to be cognizant of is that what's happening with finance. And there's one thing we can't do, is we can't do work for nothing. Okay? Like everybody else, this organisation has to balance its books. And that's one thing we'll be quite clear about over the next sort of 12 months. Kevin's talked a little about image, and he's mentioned 1 or 2 words there about how people perceive neraf. And it's called, yeah, charity, and it's made up of people who are doing peer-to-peer support. It's fantastic what you're doing. And I think that's a key strength to build upon that, because there's not many other organisations who can claim that as the case. So for me, it's a strength that we should be building on to make the most out of neraf and the opportunities to really get into some of the stuff that's being talked about by Kevin and Yellis before that. Competition. That's a strange one, isn't it, really? I've deliberately put the question mark there. Is there competition in the area of substance misuse? My feelings are that there possibly is when money's being talked about. However, I'd like to say that there are steps being taken that it will become less competitive in the future, and certainly more cooperative is what I'm picking up from the powers that be who are doing commissioning and allocating funding. And neraf will want to be part of that as cooperative in the interests of the people who are coming through the door. The mainstream approach, I'm going to come to that a little bit later on in terms of the campaigning side. One of the things we will always pick up on is we work for the people, or neraf works for the people who come through the doors, as do most other service providers. And key to that is our particular services should be geared around what the client sees as value, and we will continue to campaign for that type of approach, and I'll come to that a little bit later on. Now, sadly that doesn't reproduce, but I know some of you were involved in the strategic planning for neraf a little bit earlier in the year. And what that is the document which actually is the strategic plan for neraf over the next 3 years. And it is available on the website, or can be providing hard copy if anyone wants to see it. But basically it's it's a one-page representation of a large document. It's going to guide neraf's development over the next 12 months, 36 months. In essence, as Kevin said, it's driven by the values of neraf, which came out absolutely loud and clear during the development work. And there's then a pathway of outcomes to follow up towards the overarching outcome, which is an independent organisation that enables positive life change. And neraf will be developing all those outcomes as we go along. Sitting alongside that are another 2 strands, one of which is the infrastructure, which is looking at the people, the structure, the policy and the systems that neraf are made up from. And the other one is the culture, the people themselves who work for neraf, and how can we actually make the most of those and develop. And that strategy has really enabled us to pull out some business enablers, which I'm going to talk about now. But in essence, we're going to be looking at workforce development. What does that mean? Communication, systems and campaigning. Big words, but really it's what we're going to do over the next sort of 12 months and beyond to enable neraf to be even better for the people who access the services. So workforce development, Kevin's talked about a little bit. We're at the point of developing a special training pack for the staff of neraf and other organisations who might be interested in it, and it's currently going through accreditation. We've looked, first of all, initially to Sunderland University to do that. Very early stages, but we're hoping to have that accredited very soon. And the idea of that is to enable people to provide much more effective support for people who are coming through the door and it's what I would call a coaching model really. But it's to provide the hand-holding, to provide the problem-solving, the rapport, the language skills, the personability to actually deal with some very, very challenging situations that might be presented. Also, we will be looking at the practical quality assurance scheme for small organisations, which I deliberately put on there because I can't remember off the heading. But in essence, that's a set of standards for small organisations. Again, as Kevin's mentioned, it's about professionalisation. And I'm delighted to say that last sort of beginning of the year, that all of the staff of neraf have benefited from the service as an independent visiting mentor, supervisor and coach, who's here, Mandy from Coles Consulting, who's providing a superb service to the mentors here, independent side, to give them that type of support and development which is so needed. So we are committed to workforce development. We'll be training not just for the mentors but also for the management team as well, in order to professionalise up, as Kevin talked about, in order to deal with the image of neraf, but also to enable much better skills, much better abilities, and to be more effective to the people who come through the door. Communication is the next big strand, and it's usually the thing that is talked about by most organisations that I would visit and do work for. When you say what's the key things that are not quite working, communication is always at the top of the field there. So we're looking at how do we communicate within the organisation. It's only a small organisation, but how can we make sure the staff are fully involved? How can we capture their views? How can we capture the views of visiting partners, visiting staff from other organisations who work, who themselves may have suggestions that we might want to consider and use. So we're looking at ways in which we can make that better, so everybody knows what's happening, everybody has an opportunity to make an impact and a difference to what we are doing within the organisation. Systems is a big thing to talk about, but essentially it's how things work. What happens from the moment somebody walks through the door to the moment they walk out? What happens to all the data collection? What happens to all the finance side? How does it all come together? And part and parcel of that, of course, are measures. How do we know that what we are doing is working? Just expanding that a little bit more very soon. We've already started looking at the policy that's been mentioned, and just this week we've implemented a single equality scheme policy which is looking at equality and diversity, not just within the workplace but for users, people coming through the door as well. Moving the organisation that much more forward-looking, much more solid foundation in order to build on. We firmed up the structure, of course, and Barbara's delighted to have a new title of Finance and Performance Manager, Project Manager there. It's just to tidy up what's happening so everybody has a clear role and clear lines of appraisal. Answerable through Kevin to the management and the Board of Trustees. So again, it's to give it that sort of feel that it's a professional organisation able to do what it's expected to do. Barbara talked a little bit about performance management, and we've introduced now formal, what I would call governance arrangements every month to actually go over the finance and to go over the performance measures of the organisation to make sure things are working. And we are currently developing outcome measures, things like what happens to the individuals that are going through, but also how long does it take to sort out those doors that Kevin had on his slide, on each one of them. How to sort out a housing problem? How long does it take to sort out a debt problem? How long does it take to provide training and employ policy sort of thing? And eventually we'll have some data that will be very useful, not just to neraf, but to other partners as well. And so we're looking at how we provide information to other partners, eventually turn the tap off of alcohol misuse over the 15-year strategy of the Sunderland Partnership Strategy. So it's like a citywide impact really. And we are talking about and actually now developing new outcome measures. I'm not aware any other organisation actually has them, and we're going to do it here. Talking about campaigning, well, what's that about then? Well, at the moment we've got a small money tree, and part of Kevin's role is to make a much bigger money tree, of course, for the organisation, the campaigning. But it's not just about money. There was a well-known saying in that giant of industry, Ford, when the chief executive said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." And certainly in my experience that's true. But what do I mean? I don't mean the culture of this organisation. I'm looking here about the culture of how the government has central control over the waste services